us again, Father. In other words, we ask you, dear God, to forgive us for it, Father. Now, Lord, we ask you bless each and every one here today, Father. Bless the ones that had desire to make it but could not make it today, Father. Lord, we just ask right now that you touch someone in this church today, Father. Someone in here carrying a heavy load today, Father. Someone is disturbed by spirit, Father. We ask you to touch them right now in the name of Jesus, Father. Whether it be them or whether it be a family member, Father. Lord, we ask that you touch this church, Father. True Spirit Baptist Church today, Father. From the pastor on down to the flock today, Father. Touch us in a mighty way, Father. We ask that you stop by here today, Father. Stop by here so we can show out and we can praise you today, dear God. Lord, we ask you bless the sick and shut in. Bless the homeless, the dying and afflicted, Father. And dear God, bless the ones that just don't know Jesus and the pardon of sins, Father. We just ask, Father, that you continue to watch over our government today, Father. Watch over the military people today, Father. Oh God, we ask you to watch over the ones that are on the corners today, Father, that has nowhere to go, Father, don't know where to go, Father. We ask you to touch them today, Father. And Lord, when you finish this, Father, stop back by True Spirit today, Father, and bless us, Father, at this church. In Jesus' name, amen.
If I perish, let me perish. Well, and I'm going to meet the King. Well, and if I perish, well, let me perish. Oh, and I'm going to meet the King. Sing it one more time. Well, and if I perish, let me perish, let me perish. Well, and I'm going to meet the King. Well, and if I perish, then let me perish, let me perish. Oh, and I'm going to meet the King. Well, through all trials, tribulation, I've been abused and misused. Oh, and I'm going to meet the King. Well, through all trials, tribulation, been abused and misused. Well, and I'm going to meet the King. You ought to have it by now. Well, and if I perish, let me perish, let me perish. Oh, and I'm going to meet the King. Well, and if I perish, let me perish, let me perish. Oh, and I'm going to meet the King.
stand for the responsive reading. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling.
Worketh in you, both to will and to do his good pleasure.
Do all things without murmuring and disputings.
That ye may be blameless and harmless, sons of God, without rebuke, in the midst of the crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world.
Beholding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, and that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain.
Yea, and if I be offered upon the sacrifice and service of your faith, I rejoice with you all.
All
For the
same cause also do you
joy.
And rejoice with me.
Thank you. May be
Amen.
seated.
I am grateful for the things that you have done. Yes, I'm grateful for the victories we won. I could go on and on and on about your word, because I'm grateful, grateful, so grateful just to praise you, Lord. Flowing from my heart are the issues of my heart is gratefulness.
Amen. are the issues of my heart. Is gratefulness. I am grateful for the things that you have done. Yes, I'm grateful for the victories we won. I could go on and on and on about your word, because I'm grateful, grateful, so grateful just to praise you, Lord. Flowing from my heart are the issues of my heart. Is gratefulness. I am grateful for the things that you have done. Yes, I'm grateful for the victories we won. I could go on and on and on about your words, because I'm grateful, grateful, so grateful
gratefulness flowing from my heart is grateful. We've now reached the point in time where we want to come together as a church family and join hands at the altar. The Bible tells us to cast our cares upon Him. Without Him, we can do nothing. We'll bow our heads and close our eyes. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you as humbly as we know how, asking you to remove all accusations from our spirit right now. Forgive us of our sins, Lord God, and make us whole. Lord God, that when we petition, that our prayers can be answered. In your mighty name we pray. God, we just ask you to bless us, Lord God, as we're here today. Touch our spirit, Lord God, deep down in our flesh, Lord. For you said that when our spirit moans, Lord, nobody else understands what it is. So when we hear us moan, Lord God, we're talking directly to you. That's our direct communication to you, Lord God. In the name of Jesus. God, we ask that you bless each and every person that walked up here today, Lord God, as they join hands. Keep them, Lord God. You know their troubles. You know their situations, Lord God. You know what they're going through, Lord God. You know that they just may need to be lifted up, Lord God. We pray right now that you just lift them, Lord God. Give them the courage. Give them the strength right now in the name of Jesus, Lord God. Lord, we need you. We need you, Lord. We pray for this church, Lord God, and the people of the church, Lord God. Those that are sick, those that are ill, those that have illnesses that are hidden, Lord God, but we continue to press forward anyway, God. You are our strength. Without you, Lord God, we can do nothing. So we give it all to you. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Father, we just lift your name right now. We say hallelujah because it is the highest praise, Lord God. We can't worship you enough. We don't know the words to worship you enough, Lord God. Enter our minds, enter our spirit, Lord God. Enter our heart. Clean us, Lord God. Send a refresher right now. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Father, we rebuke the adversary. He is nothing to us. Greater are you that is in us than he that is in the world. Lord, we got to learn to lean unto your understanding, Lord God, not our own. And Lord, once we do this, we know that the things that we petition for will be answered in full. For God, your promises are yea and amen. And we believe it in the name of Jesus. We believe it. So God, we come to you humbly, submitting ourselves to you, exalting you and only you and not ourselves, Lord God. That you could just look after us, Lord God. Look after the family members of those that are here, Lord God. Touch families, Lord God. Men families, Lord God. Men marriages, men friendships, Lord God. Work relationships, Lord God. We give it to you. We give it to you, Lord God, and we don't worry about it no more. We can't worry about it no more because, God, you can't work in doubt. Father, our faith, build our faith, and keep us, Lord. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Give God some praise. Give him some praise in the house. Has he been good to you? Did he wake you up this morning? Give God some praise. Amen. This is our offertory period, the period that you can give back a portion of what God has given you. Eternal God, our Father, we just come before you saying thank you. Thank you for this great day, Father. Thank you for waking us up once again, Father. We just give you all the honor. that you deserve. In Jesus' name, amen. You're now in the hands of the deacons and ushers.
Please stand and be directed in the ushers in the room.
Eternal God, our Father, we just come before you saying thank you, Father. Thank you for those who gave and those that didn't have it, Father. But we ask that you bless us all, the upkeep of your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Give our junior ushers a round of applause. Amen.
Good morning, True Spirit.
Good morning.
This is the period of our service which we acknowledge the presence of our visitors. Our visitors, would you please stand, give us your name and something about yourself. And please remain standing because the guests, visitors, greeters ministry has a gift for you.
Amen. 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 Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
My name's Sammy Rule. I just moved up here from Oklahoma. Chuck here invited me up here, and I sell cars.
All right.
Good morning, church. My name is Rhonda Williams. I am a member of Heritage Christian Center in Denver, Colorado. I'm here visiting Colorado Springs this weekend. And I was hoping to see Mr. Bob Munn today. I grew up with his daughter. We were roommates in college, and I was hoping to surprise him, but I don't see him. So I'm just glad to be here in the house of the Lord, worshiping with you all.
morning, church. I'm Alicia's cousin. I've been here like 4 times. And this is my daughter. This is her third time, and my grandson's 3rd time. And this is my son's 2nd time.
We would like to say on behalf of our pastor, Pastor Anthony Greer, and our First Lady, Jennifer Greer, that we are so elated that you chose us to visit with today. You could have gone anywhere in Colorado Springs, but thank you. I'm sorry Deacon Munn is not here today to greet you, but we'll love on you anyway. Amen. We have a saying here. God loves you. We love you. And there's nothing you can do about it. There's one announcement just before the overhead, please, and that will be Minister Greer.
Amen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope everybody's doing well today. Yes. Amen. I am up here for the women's ministry. Woo woo! All right. All you women stand up because this is for you. Amen. All the women of True Spirit Baptist Church. The women's ministry is sponsoring their annual retreat, September 7th. This year's theme is Diamonds in the Rough. Our theme is coming from James, the 1st chapter, the 12th verse. The location is at the Julia Penrose Carriage House, located on the Broadmoor Estate. Woo! Upscale. So the cost is going to be $15 per person to come and have lunch. It's a light breakfast and lunch. We will have a sign up, correct? And you can sign up. And if you can't go, please sponsor someone else. Amen. Amen. You all can have a seat. I hope to see all your faces. Thank you.
Good morning, True Spirit. Today is August 12th. My name is Nia, and let's get started on this week's announcements. It's officially back to school season, but you don't have to miss out on Sunday service. You can catch up on live and previous services by searching and subscribing to the channel TSBC Media on YouTube. If you recently joined True Spirit, we have a class just for you, and it occurs every Sunday in the Fellowship Hall starting at 9:30 a.m. For those of you that want to brush up on the Word of God and dive deeper, we also have our Sunday School, which occurs at the same time. On Thursday, August 29th, we will have our church business meeting at 6 p.m. As I said earlier, back to school season is in full swing, and we here at TSBC will be having a back to school giveaway on Saturday, August 31st. There will be free haircuts, shoes, and backpacks at this event, which will occur from 10 to 12 p.m. Donations are still being accepted, and we will want to fill this corner to be a blessing to our community. Looking ahead, we will be having a leader seminar on Saturday, September 21st, starting at 8:30 a.m. All leaders and co-leaders need to be in attendance. Finally, we will be holding an event called Pastor's Corner on Saturday, October 12th, starting at 10 a.m. Registration is $10, and all pastors and ministers are invited to attend. That does it for our upcoming events. Keep up with what's going on with us by searching and liking us on Facebook at True Spirit Baptist Church. Now, here are the rest of your weekly announcements, and remember, God loves you, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it, even if you try. Have a blessed week.
I got a new in my voice. I'm gonna praise him. Somebody say yeah. Yeah, come on. Come on. I'll praise him. Gonna do in my hands. I gotta do it in my days. I'm gonna praise him. Say I'm gonna praise him. Come on, let's rejoice. Listen, I'm gonna praise the Lord while I have chains. I'm gonna thank the Lord, thank him in advance. All of the things that the Lord has brought me through. I'm gonna praise the Lord, and this is what I'm gonna do. Let us celebrate God for who He is as we make it back to our place of worship. Let us celebrate Him. And the saints of God said, Amen. Amen. 150 Psalm says, let everything that has breath praise ye the Lord. Come on, if you got a praise in you, let's praise our God for whom all blessings flow. Because of Him we have our being, and we are here today. Amen. 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 We're grateful to be here. You may be seated, thanking God for who He is. A couple of things. Deacon Munn should be back shortly. Amen. Amen. You know how it is when you lose something, you got to find it. Amen. I ask that you would continue to pray for our own Deacon Powell. Continue to pray for Deacon McIntyre. I was just informed he is in the ICU unit, so we're going to keep him in prayer. Amen. Continue to pray for all of our members of True Spirit Baptist Church. Despite of what they're going through, we want them to know that we're praying even though they're not here. Amen. So we're grateful for what God is doing on that end. Have a couple praise reports. Certificate of baptism for Brother Marlon Price. Did he make it here today? It was this morning. You're right. All right. Another one for Sister Sanders. I ain't even going to begin to try to pronounce your first name, but we have a gift certificate. When I say gift, your certificate of baptism to you. Amen. Amen. I know some of y'all say, what? Sister Sanders. Altuiz. I said it right. That's how she said it. I'm messing with some of y'all with this gift certificate thing. Another certificate of baptism for Brother Andre McClure. Amen. Certificate of baptism for Tyshawn Honaker. Did I say it right? Did he make it today? He didn't make it. All right. Got a new membership certificate for Brother Andre McClure again. Amen. Amen. We're grateful for those accomplishments, things that have been given out. Amen. And like I said, I was messing with you when I said gift certificate, because it is a gift to be able to be baptized. It's a gift because when you are being blessed by the gift giver, then it's a great thing. Amen. Amen. Also, I'm asking you to continue to pray for our children as they go back to school. Continue to keep them lifted up in prayer. I know we have a couple more schools that will just be starting. Keep them lifted up, a hedge of protection around them. Continue to pray for families that have lost their loved ones to some tragic event. I want to say thank you to those that made our anniversary a success on last week. Let's give yourselves a hand. Amen. Amen. Also, I'm asking that all those that may have served food or waited on the tables in any capacity on last week to please see me briefly after service in the first classroom. If you served food or served and waited on the tables, please see me briefly after service. Amen. I ask that you continue to pray. That's another one I forgot. Sister Carolyn, she lost one of her clients. It was real close to her, and she's out of town right now, so Reverend Ashite is attending to her father. So we want to keep them lifted up in prayer as well. Amen. Amen. Our shoe and school supply drive. Amen. Listen, I said it at the end, but I'm going to get it out the way now. And no disrespect to nobody. Please don't call me if you have negative to say about the school supply drive. And I say that from my heart, because if we can't be men and women enough to give, then we need to think about why we come to church. Amen. Amen. I just, it vexes my spirit for people to always talk negative when we're trying to do better for someone else. So please, ma'am, please, sir, pray on your comments and keep them sealed within. Because if you call me and you're talking about it, I'm going to give you some godly words, because it's just disrespectful. Amen. Amen. But on a good note, it's growing. And I'm grateful for those that are being obedient to giving. I'm looking forward to blessing the community on the 31st of August. We do have haircuts in line. We do have the lady coming with the shots. So you must see Sister Sandoval and Sister Libra with your information, so they can tell you what you need to bring in order for your child to get their shots. So please see them after service. They'll be outside in the lobby area with a table to give you the information needed. And again, my friend from Superior Barber Cuts, he is going to supply some barbers. And for those that didn't know, I used to be a barber too, so I may even cut a little bit to help with them. But we're looking forward to this on the 31st of August from the hours of 10 to 12. Tell whoever you know that may be in the need. Amen. Amen. We're trying to do all we can, and each year we're going to make it bigger and bigger. So it's one bag, one pair of shoes for one child, for each child. So we want to make sure we're there. Please make sure you bring them, because there will not be any traveling requests. I won't be taking it back to them. They need to come to us. Amen. So we want to do that. We want to lift them up, encourage them, and let them know we love them at True Spirit. Amen. All right, our Tuesday midweek fuel, 11:30 and 7 o'clock. We're working and talking about the question, is there schism in the church? And we've been discussing some things about schism and how it hinders the next generation. But most importantly, schism leads to gossip. And the one that leads to gossip with schism, and as a part of gossip and schism, is usually the one that's camouflaging a request for prayer. Because your life is, you can't focus on the drama in your own life. You will deposit your energy on someone else's life. So now really you're covering up needing a prayer. Amen. And so we want you to come out and find out what the Bible says, because the Lord talks to us through Paul about schism and how it should not exist. He also tells us that when there is division in the church, because schism is a separate team or separate group of people within the body, developing something that's already existing but making it more than one. When there is division, it says a house divided cannot stand. And if you haven't noticed throughout the days and throughout society and throughout this country, our churches are falling apart because it's divided. A lot of opinions, a lot of spectators, and a lot of people that are not prayer warriors. People are not gathering people through their walk, but yet they're trying to be believers in Christ, but yet they're falsifying who they believe. And so we want you to come out on Tuesday and be a part of our Bible study, because we're growing and we're teaching and we're learning what God wants us to do and not to do. Because I don't know about you, but I love blessings. And I love when God looks out and blesses me in the process of me doing what he told me to do. So we want you to come out Tuesday at 11:30 and 7 o'clock and be a part of our midweek fuel week as we continue to grow in learning what thus say the Lord. Amen? Amen. Continue to pray for all those that are on the highways with their children, going to the various colleges. We pray God's speed that they'll come back safely. Amen. Let's give the choir a hand as they come again.
Makes no difference what the problem. I can go to God in prayer. Yes, I have this blessed assurance. I can go to God in prayer. He will take my gloom and sorrows, turn it into light. He will comfort, strengthen, and keep me. I can go to God in prayer. I can call Him when I need Him. Father, Father, up in heaven. I can go to God in prayer. I can go to God in prayer. Sometimes my burden gets so heavy. I can go to God in prayer. I have found one who is so faithful. I can go to God in prayer. He will take my gloom and sadness, turn it into light. He will comfort, strengthen, and keep me. I can go to God in prayer. I can call Him when I need Him. Father, Father, up in heaven. I can go to God in prayer. I can go to God in prayer. Whoa, sometimes my burden gets so heavy. I can go to God in prayer. But I found one who is so faithful. I can go to God in prayer. Oh, He will take my gloom and sadness, turn it into light. He will comfort, strengthen, and keep me. I can go to God in prayer. I can call Him when I need Him. Father, Father, up in heaven. I can go to God in prayer. I can go to God in prayer. Oh, He can work it out. He can work it out. Yes, He can. Yes, He can. Yes, He can. Oh, yes. Oh, I have no doubt God will work it out. Yes, He can. Oh, yes, He can. Yes, He can. Oh, yes. Oh, He'll brighten up your way each and every day. Yes, He can. Oh, yes, He can. Yes, He can. Oh, yes. Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. Yes, He can. Oh, yes, He can. Yes, He can. Oh, yes. Oh, I can call Him when I need Him. Father, Father, up in heaven. I can go to God in prayer. I can go to God in prayer. Well, He can work it out. He can work it out. Yes, He can. Oh, yes, He can. Yes, He can. Oh, yes. Oh, I have no doubt I can call him when I need him. Father, Father, up in heaven, I can go to God in prayer. I can go to God in prayer. Up in heaven, I can go to God in prayer. I can go to God in
Father, it's preaching time. Oh God, as we have heard songs and gifts have been given, now God, we ask that you would deposit a word from on high. Be the gracious God that you've always been, and share some crumbs from the Master's table that we can eat until we want no more. Let me decrease, you increase in me, hide me behind the throne. Let them see your image upon me, hear your voice through me. Oh God, we pray that this word falls on fertile soil and disrupts stony ground. So let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Oh Lord, I praise you, glorify you, give you all the praise, because you're my strength, and Lord, you're my redeemer. And the saints of God said, amen. Come on, let's celebrate Jesus one more time. If he's awesome, let's give him an awesome praise. He's a good God. He's worthy to be praised. Just be so kind and look at somebody and say, neighbor, we serve an awesome God, and he's worthy to be praised. If you believe that, come on, let's give him a big shout. Amen. 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 With your manuals of life, if you would turn with me to the book of Proverbs, chapter 3. There's no need to worry what the night is gonna bring. It'll be all over in the morning. There's no need to worry what the night is gonna bring. It'll be all over in the morning. There's no need to worry what the night is gonna bring. It'll be all over in the morning. In the morning, it'll be all over in the morning. Do me one more favor, just grab your neighbor by the hand and say, there's no need to worry what the night is gonna bring. It'll be all over in the morning. You smile and look at that neighbor. There's no need to worry what the night is gonna bring. It'll be all over in the morning. In the morning, It'll be all over in the morning. Y'all say that again with me with no music. Oh yeah. Oh yes, it will. It'll be all over in the morning. One more time, y'all. Come on, bring it in. Oh yeah. It'll be all over in the morning. Proverbs chapter 3, verse number 5. If you have it, say amen. If you're still looking, shout out Bible study. We don't discriminate. We got room for you. And there you're going to find just 4 words I'm going to repeat. Trust in the Lord. You may be seated. Amen. Amen. If you would help me this morning to preach on the subject, the topic, trust in God. Trust in God. Trust in God. On a recent service trip to the Hurricane Katrina ravage on the coast of Mississippi, there were some people that worked at a home that was owned by a Methodist preacher. His name was Reverend Jones. He and his wife had left their home before Katrina had struck. They were stuck in a shelter and needed about $300 to travel to Atlanta to be with their daughter until their new home could be built. After the storm, the water was knee-high. They went to the place where they once stayed to try to salvage all that they could. Reverend Jones saw several of his pictures that were framed, just floating in the water. He didn't say or try to save anything else, so he grabbed those pictures that were floating in the water. When he got the pictures, he removed his father's picture to let it dry. And upon removing the picture, there dropped $366. And a letter on the back of the picture stating, "I'm saving this money for my children and a rainy day." Reverend Jones then began to think about it, because this was in 1942 when he was just a little boy, and his father had put it in the frame to save for a rainy day. The money was precisely what he needed and some to get to Atlanta after the storm was done, to wait with his daughter, to stay with his daughter, he, his wife, and his children until his home was built. And ain't it funny how when situations take place in your life, God always prepare a ram in the bush. I mean, don't look at me and not say something, but look at me and witness to the fact that you too can say, when you were in desperate need, you kept your trust, y'all ain't with me this morning, in God, and God has always been able to provide whatever it was that you needed. Even in your worst moment, he gave you a little extra strength to let you know. I wish I could get somebody that can say, "Reverend, I've been there, that I was down and out, I was busted and disgusted, but yet I decided to put my trust in the Lord, and I found out that God always show up and shows out. So that's why I can trust him the way that I do." Somebody shout out, "Trust in God." Yeah, I trust in God, because God always make provisions for me in the midst of the storm. And when we look at Proverbs, we think about Solomon. Solomon, the son of David.
Solomon was known for him turning his heart and his back against the Lord. But it's unique how the Lord uses Solomon to give us some of the best instructions that life could give. He gives us some instructions in the Bible to let us know that there are some basic instructions before leaving earth that we must understand. And it's fitting that he put it in the Bible for us that were willing to read the Bible to get a better understanding on how life should really be. And truth be told, some of us don't like the Bible because the Bible tells us about ourselves. And the Bible exposes us for what we're doing and not doing. And so here it is, Solomon, the Bible says, one of the wisest man that ever walked the earth, gives us some trinkets just to understand what we need to do to trust in God. And we need to first, understand that when Solomon was the wisest man that ever walked earth, that lets you know how many Bibles you quote, how many scriptures you quote. You're not the wisest person. There's somebody smarter than you. You have never arrived above God's holy word. And at the moment you think you have arrived over God's word, you better get on your knees and pray. Because then now you look like you're bigger than God. And the Bible says that God says, I'm a jealous God. And I'll have no other God before him. And no matter what information you have from Genesis to Revelation, you still have to humble yourself under the mighty hand of God so that he can exalt you in due season, in due time. And we need to understand there's only one Solomon. We got too many gods and junior Jesuses in the church that think they can preach and teach the gospel, but yet can't be taught the word. I'm trying not to go back to what I said at 8 o'clock, but it seems like it's spilling over. Y'all remember the preacher said the coffee in the saucer, it seems like it's spilling over. So we need to understand about Solomon's disposition, because there was a moment in Solomon's life that he acted like his father. And Solomon teaches this book of the wisdom area of the literature that the children of Israel took it upon themselves to live by. But we all know Solomon, the Bible says Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And in today's time, many of us would call Solomon a pimp. And truth be told, because he's preaching the gospel, they'll call him a pimping preacher. Yeah. Y'all know that's what y'all say about preachers. But here it is. Solomon's giving the practical instructions for successful living, but also telling us there's a special wisdom that will be revealed by God. And one thing he shows us in the text, as you look at verse 1, he talks about your moral teachings should be imparted in your heart. It's right there in the text, my son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. And we all ought to have some type of moral in our spirit. I get a little sick and nauseous when I look at church folk that always complain about what somebody else not doing. But they also seem to have no moral connection when someone is in the need of help. I'm troubled in spirit because you ain't always been able to sit on the house on the hill. You ain't always been able to eat steak and eggs all your life. And there are some people that's seeking direction so they can learn how to live and eat according to what God wants them to be. So your teachings imparted in your heart. It's in the earlier learnings that we understand some things that should still help you in direction. Solomon gives this notion based upon what was said to the children in Deuteronomy 8. He told them, as you learn these things through your circumstances, then now you can show the next generation how to live. And can I just stop right here for a second? We got to do a better job in showing the next generation how to live. You can't be best friends with your sons and daughters. You got to be an example for your children. You got to stop cussing and fussing in front of your children and expect them to speak with correct grammar in the presence of other adults. You got to be an example. And here it is, as it affects the next generation. You can't complain with what they don't know. Because it's your job to show them. You can't get mad at your daughter if she got pregnant at an early age. You should have showed her how not to do those things. But here it is. We're living in a society that it ain't easy to show. So sometimes you got to sit down and talk to them. You got to put aside some of your pinnacles and your lottery scratch-off days and sit down and talk to your children. Put aside washing on your car, going to a football game, and sit down and teach your son how to be a man. Teach your daughter how to be young women, and stop letting them walk around like they've been hatched instead of born. Sad indictment. It's a tragic that we're losing souls based upon the Christians' lack of ignorance. Solomon is teaching us that, and some people don't grab correction well. So then that's why it is great that God allowed this to be in the Holy Writ, because guess what? We all have sinned. And we all have made mistakes. So then now you can't get upset when your child has made mistakes. You got to teach them how you made the correction. So that the moral teaching should be imparted in your heart. But he also says your morality should reflect the compassion of God. Right there in verse 3, he tells us that you must have a morality. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them around about the neck. Write them upon the tables of thine heart. Your compassion should reflect God's compassion. We should have love for God's people. We have some that's seeking to be directed, and because the saints are not willing to direct them, that's why they're in the wilderness for so long. Can I just be honest? The Bible says there's going to be a great falling away of the saints before the end of time. And if you haven't noticed, the church is become a skeleton with no meat on the bones. Because many people are quick to judge somebody by their outfit instead of looking at them on the inside and trying to deposit some things that can cover them up as they deal with life's struggles. So then your compassion must be such as God, because here it is, while you're in the wilderness, God is always willing to help you while in the wilderness. And the problem is we get in the wilderness and we complain about what he's doing to us in the wilderness. But God has to allow us to go through some stuff so he can show you that I am the way, the truth, and the light. And I wish I had about 2 people that can say, Reverend, I've been there. I've been down and out, and I learned what it knows to be like to go through some stuff, but I put my trust in God. That no matter what my situation was, I still had a praise and a shout in my spirit, because I knew trouble don't last always. If I could just hold on to God's unchanging hand. Look at somebody and say, have compassion for me. Yeah, have some compassion for me. We're so quick. Watch this. We're so quick to see our fellow brothers stand alone. So then watch this. Paul says it like this in Galatians 6. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Watch this. We love ourselves, but we're reluctant to love those that need love. And there is the part where you can't teach somebody how to trust God if you don't love God. And so here it is. We as Christians, we need to deposit into them at their moments of struggle. Because Solomon is not just talking to the children of Israel, but Solomon is speaking of himself. Because here it is. Solomon done some stuff that was not appropriate, but yet God let him still lead. You just missed your shout.
He done some stuff that was not appropriate, but God still allowed him to lead. That should have got about 2 shouts that God still uses you. Despite of all the mess and drama you keep up, he allows you to stand before his people. Watch this, filthy rags, but you can at least try to testify. It was his amazing grace that saved a wretch like me. It was sweet and sour that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I found. I was blind, but I thank God that he didn't give up on me. I can see now. Yeah, you have to have a compassion. But he also shows us in verse 4, he says, your favor is found through the love you extend into man. Right there in your Bible, it says it. It says, so shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Watch this. The problem has become in society is because once we have been, and this might get a little deep to some, and some might overlook this, but once we have been freed from slavery, we forget that our testimony can help save or free somebody else from slavery. Let me talk to you sanctified, you holy rollers, you Bible total scripture quoters, those that refuse to be a witness to those that need to see a witness. And the problem is there's not enough shouting in God's house like you've been delivered from something. I wish there was somebody that could celebrate with me and say, Reverend, I once was lost in sin, but thanks God he blessed me to free me from the chains and the shackles that were on my feet. Now I can tell somebody I am a living testimony. Look at somebody and say, you want to see grace, you looking right at it. That should have been a shout, because everybody in here is a deposit of favor of grace. You got grace on your job, grace in your home, grace over death angel. That should bring about a shout in the church. Look at 2 more people and say, you want to see grace, you looking right at it. Yeah, that's grace. That's the favor. That's the favor that we have to learn to extend into man. Because watch this, man is hurting bad. Peter says it like this, above all, you must love each other deeply. In 1 Peter chapter 4, because love covers a multitude of sin. And that word deeply means I got to love you even when it hurts. So then I can extend my hand when you're going through, because I know that I went through what you've been going through. And I know God didn't leave me there. In fact, I can get 2 and I'll make 3 that can say he didn't let my past affect my future. In fact, he didn't let my past stunt my growth. In fact, it was because of my past I was able to push and he was pulling me through. Yea, though I walk through the valleys and the shadows of death, I will fear no evil. And watch this. That's the problem with some of the senior saints. We don't know when to praise them in front of the young people, to let them know, though I'm old, I can still shout. Dry bones in the valley still live. If I can't say nothing, I'll just. So then now you know I got a reason to lift up my hands in the sanctuary, because arthritis kept me down, but God, he kept me in the process. We give an example because we complain about everything that we go through in the presence, so they don't know how to trust God. So the first thing Solomon shows me in verse number 5, he says, you have to teach them how to make a commitment. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. There must be a commitment that you can entrust all your hope and your values, seeking a providential direction from God. And watch this, you cannot be temporal in your trust We must have a constant trust behavior. I notice, and y'all tell me if y'all notice this too, we'll trust him as long as we can get what we want. But the minute it don't look like it's supposed to, then we complain. Now you doubt God. Lord, I don't know how I'm going to pay this bill. I don't know how I'm going to put gas in my car. Lord, I don't know I don't know how I'm going to get the kids school supplies. I don't know how I'm going to get my medicine. But God, I believe you, but I'm wondering where you at. But the minute he bless you, now you're shouting all over the church like you're the only one been through something. But don't you know you got to celebrate him even when you're going through and don't have it? Then that lets him know that I'm praising you even though it ain't here. But I know through my praise and my belief and trust, I know it's on the way. Because they tell us when praises go up, that means through the storm and rain, I got to throw up a praise because I want a blessing. Look at somebody and say, it's coming my way. You got to trust him. You can't be temporal. And Isaiah said it best. In Isaiah 9, he says, for unto us a child is born. And unto us a son is given. The government shall be on his shoulders. And they shall call him Wonderful Counselor. Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. And some people ought to be glad that when you were looking for some help, he carried your burdens on his shoulders. So this word in the Greek, commit, means obligation. We're obligated to trust him. Because now watch this. If you trust him, he showed you that he cares for you. If you cast your burdens upon him, he cares for you. We can't have saints that's dealing with spiritual heartburns. We're having spiritual heartburns because we don't trust God enough. You question the preacher. You question the deacons. You question the mothers. You question everybody, but watch this, you don't question yourself. So now you're running around looking for a spiritual tongue to ease your heartburns. But how many know in your spirit it needs to be the flowing of living waters, which is the word of God. And so when you get that God in you, it'll flow from your heart, the issues of your problems. But I'm grateful that it didn't keep me down. And I kept a heart of God. So then now I know when I'm struggling, just keep on living. God will make a way out of no way. Spiritual heartburns that's causing us to have headaches. And then now we were angry with God and we're not seeking God for direction. Solomon is saying you got to learn to trust God. Because, watch this, God has never misled anybody to the wrong place. That should have got 3 shouts. Especially those that know about church. He never misled anybody to the wrong place. But the second thing I saw in the text, and I'm going to get ready to get out of your way, is that your compassion cannot see beyond God's conception. Your compassion cannot see beyond your comprehension, cannot see beyond God's conception. Watch this, it says, lean not to thy own understanding. You cannot begin to understand what God is birthing in you. Watch this. He tells us in the Bible, before I formed you in the belly of the womb, I knew you before you were born. But while you were there, I set you apart. Let me just park right there. Get a baby Ruth. He set us apart in the womb of our mothers. But he set us apart before your mama and daddy decided to do what grown folks do to conceive you. Can I help you a little bit? So then the conception is, watch this. Y'all remember the miraculous conception of how Jesus was deposited into Mary? So then now, watch this. Before you were even created, he knew that it was going to be a miraculous conception, that you would survive being all the devilment and the hell that you was before you were born. Let me reel it on in. You should shout, because God had a plan for you before you were even planned to be birthed. And in that plan, he then said, now I have the plans. You don't know the thoughts and the plans I have for you, but I have a plan for your prosperity and good living. And somebody should be shouting because you thank God that he had a mansion already prepared for you. He already had your job prepared, your finances set up, your health set up, and your children safe. That should bring about a shout, because God didn't give up on you. Yeah. The comprehension, it can't see beyond God's concept, because God knew what he wanted to have. And watch this, in order to even get a grasp of what God wants for you, you must let go of pride, programs, and plans. Because now, if you let those things go, you'll find out that there was something inner inside of you that no one would understand why you are where you are. And watch this. We got too much stuff in the way. That's why we can't trust him. Too much stuff, too much pride, too much of your own programs, and too many plans that you have that is not of God. So it's in the way. So then now watch this. When you have all those things in a way, it's hard to receive what God is planning for you because you don't see it in yourself. And so now those that know who God is, you should be testifying to those that are lost, so that they will know that though it looks grim in your life, God showed me the way out. He will show you the way out. So then it could be more praising than pouting, more celebrating than criticizing, more shouting than shooting, more dancing than doubting, more loving than lying, no more rejoicing before rejecting, fellowship than fighting, helping than hurting, exalting than eliminating, giving than gossip, hugging than hating, dreams than nightmares, praying than playing, deliverance than death. Then now you got something positive to show those that don't feel good about themselves, that I don't think I'm going to make it. But God had a bigger plan. That meant he wanted you to live and not die. I believe every preacher says it best when he says, now unto him who is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ask or think, according to the power that works within us. And many of us don't know that God has something special ready to be birthed out of you, if only you trust him. That job, you got to trust him. Health conditions, you got to trust him. Your waywardness, you have to trust him. Your hunger for spiritual leadership, you got to trust him. Your hunger to be better, you got to trust him. Because God is trying to let you see something. And he's wanting to show you that he has some stuff inside of you that you'll be able to help those that are lost. Children of Israel struggled because they act like scorners. Scorners are those that can't be taught because they got their mind already made up. And the Bible talks how Solomon is the wisest man, but this book of Proverbs zeroes in on three type of people: the fool, the simple, and the scorners. And he tells us in chapter 9, verse 8, he says, you're wasting time talking to scorners because they already got their mind made up. They can't be taught. Sound like some Pharisees to me. But it's unique how he used the word scorners, because when you think about scorning, everybody always get in contact with somebody that will scar you. I know I'm talking right. And truth be told, it's the scars that the scorners have put in your life that makes you stronger. So stop laughing and getting mad when they talk about you. Just laugh about it. Stop getting upset when they don't treat you like you want to be treated. Just keep praying for them. Because watch this, they whipped Jesus all night long. But yet he still got some glory. Because at the end of the day, he said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw unto me. So now I draw nigh unto him, and he'll draw nigh. Every strike that you get from your enemy talking down, just laugh and say that you thought that was going to take me out. But what the enemy meant for evil, God meant it for good. Look at somebody and say, I ain't worried about the scorners. In fact, I don't even like the way you're looking at me. I'm going to praise them anyways. Because there are going to be some scorners in the church that have to be corrected. And God is the only one that can do the correcting. So the reason why I shout, because the more you talk about me, he going to whoop your behind. The more you laugh at me, he going to whip your behind. Because he says, many are the affliction of the righteous, but the Lord will deliver them out. Somebody shout out, I laugh at scorners. Yeah, I laugh at scorners. We overlook that word because we say, that's not in my vocabulary. There are some scorners in the church that need to understand. My point number 3. Point number 3 is not only the commitment, not only your comprehension to his conception, but you must know there's certainty in the Savior. Right there, if you jump to verse 6, he says, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. That's certainty. Only if you acknowledge him. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. Certainty in the Greek, asphoria, means there's an exact truth. We need to know that God's word will not return back void. It will accomplish what it set out to do. If God said you're going to be blessed, you got to trust him, and you will be blessed. If God says he's going to protect you, you got to trust him, and he will protect you. For David says in Psalm 27, for in the day of trouble he will keep me safe in his dwelling place. He will hide me in the shelter, some Bibles say the pavilion of his sacredness, and set me high upon a rock. Solomon says you must learn to trust him in all your ways, and he shall direct your path if in your ways you acknowledge him for who he is and continue to trust in God. He will make a way. Which reminds me of a story of a preacher, his wife, and his children. He pastored an inner city church, but he lived on the outskirts of the city. Christmas time had rolled up. This preacher was talking to his wife. He told his wife, he said, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't even worry about Christmas, because I'm trusting in God. His wife looked at him. She said, well, Reverend, there's no food to be made. There's no gifts under the tree. What we gonna do now? He said, I trust in God that maybe tomorrow when we make it to the church house, they will give us a little extra and we'll be able to make groceries and buy gifts for the children. Ain't the Lord all right? The preacher laid down that night, and unfortunately there was a storm that came that closed the whole town down. He woke up and his wife was sitting up looking at him. She said, what now, preacher? He said, I trust in God because some time ago I told the Lord, if you would just bless me, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Ain't the Lord all right? But his wife looked at him and she said, but Reverend, still there's no groceries to be made. There's no presents under the tree. What we gonna do now? The night went by and Christmas came. Children were upset and sad because there was no food on the table and no gifts under the tree. His wife walked out of the room just looking at her husband. She said, preacher, what are we gonna do now? The pastor looked at his wife. He said, prepare the table so that we can sit down and eat. As they sat at the table and he began to pray, he said, Lord, I want to thank you for the food I'm about to receive. Go back to the one. I want to thank you for the things that are about to come our way. In Jesus' name, amen. And his wife looked up with the same big eyes and said, what now, preacher? He said, just wait and watch the Lord. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. There was the chairman of deacons. He said, Pastor, yesterday there was a storm and you were unable to make it to church service. So we decided to bring Christmas to you. All of the women of the church came in. They had greens, pinto beans, candy yams, turkey, and ham, and dressing, and a little red Kool-Aid. And all of them came in. And all of the deacons, they came in with presents in their hands for all the children. And while they were opening presents and eating a great meal, the deacon reached in his pocket and said, Reverend, here's your Sunday pay, and here's a little extra to help you along the way. And I got one question I want to ask you today. In the time of trouble, won't the Lord make a way out of no way if only you trust in God? The wife looked at the preacher. She said, what now, preacher? He said, all you got to do is receive the blessings that God has bestowed before you. And I got one question I want to ask you this morning. Anybody here trusting in God? Won't he make a way? Have you tried him in sickness? Won't he make a way? Financial problems? Won't he make a way? Aching in your body? Won't he make a way? Trouble in your home? Won't he make a way? Somebody shout out, trust in God, and he will make a way. Be not dismayed, whatever betide, God will God will. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Has he made a difference in your life? He'll take care of you. How do I know? One Friday, he went on the cross called Calvary. They hung him high. They stretched him wide. Y'all know what he did. He died from the 6th to the 9th hour. He didn't stay dead all day Friday, all night Friday, all day Saturday, all night Saturday. But early Sunday morning, he trusts in what God said, that if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. I got a question I want to ask you. Ain't he all right? Have you tried him? Won't he do it? Won't he make a way? Do me one favor. Just stand with your hands, poke your chest out, and say, I'm trusting in God. I'm trusting in the Lord because he will direct my path. Won't he do it? Won't he show you the way? Have you tried him? Look at somebody else and tell your neighbor, just keep trusting in your circumstances. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy is going to come in the morning. I got one more and I'm going to get to my seat. Anybody got joy? Unspeakable joy. Joy that'll make you shout. Joy that'll make you say, thank you, Jesus. You made a way out of no way. Won't he do it? Say yes. Say yes. Ain't he all right? Ain't he all right? Say yes. Yeah. Trust in God. Come on, let's give him a hand clap of praise. If you're trusting in him, give him a big praise. Don't fool me now. Now, if you really trust him, come on, let's give him a celebratory praise. A trusting praise. Maybe someone out in the wilderness that need direction. Maybe you're saying, I'm tired. I done it my way and it ain't working. I'm tired of losing. And I'm tired of hearing people say I'm a winner, but yet I don't know what winning feels like.